The film opens with a woman named Shi-young, stepping out of her car with bloodstains on her legs. She then picks up a sledgehammer, and drags it across an auto shop. It's not clear what's going on, but the woman walks up to a man, and uses the hammer to squash him. The next scene takes us to the past. Shi-young, a martial arts champion in the Korean Special Forces who worked as a bodyguard, heads home after having been locked away in prison. She is excitedly greeted by her sister, Yoon-hae, who has autism. The sisters are close and have always taken care of each other. The two promises to never leave each other's sides again. That night, they spend their time catching up and embracing each other, and Shi-young gifts her sister with a pretty hairpin. As they are about to go to sleep, Yoon-hae expresses that she really hates going to school. Shi-young, however, continues to convince her sister to stay in school because it was their late father's will. On the next morning, Shi-young finds that her sister has gone to school, but is gifted her with a red dress and a pair of red heels. Yoon-hae also left a note stating that she'd like Shi-young to be around more from now on, so they can be there for each other. Seeing this note gets Shi-young to realize that her sister needs her, and that she needs to do a better job at taking care of her sister. Meanwhile at school, it turns out that Yoon-hae is often the victim of bullying in her class, which is why she wants to quit school. She is bullied for having autism. After school, the bullies coerces her into coming with them. On the other side of the story, Shi-young is trying to rebuild her bodyguard career by applying to join her former team. She gets an audience with the recruiter, who admits how formidable she is as a fighter, but unfortunately, he can't hire her because she has a criminal record from attacking a man in the past. The bullies take Yoon-hae to a karaoke place, and force her to change into more revealing clothes. When Yoon-hae says she wants to go home, she is instead introduced to three boys who run a shady business. The boys would disguise Yoon-hae as a prostitute, by making her a call woman to hook up with the older men in a hotel room. Later on, the three boys would storm inside the room and pretend to save Yoon-hae, while in truth what they're after is the men's wallets so they could steal the money. The boys are sure that the older men won't call the police on them, because the boys know what will happen if they are caught with underage girls. While this is happening, our main character, Shi-young, keeps trying to reach her sister's phone, but never gets an answer. Worried, Shi-young goes to the streets to fruitlessly search for her sister. To make it more concerning, Yoon-hae never returns home the following morning. Shi-young puts on the red dress and shoes that her sister gave her, and visits her sister's school. However, she couldn't find her sister anywhere. She even faces Yoon-hae's homeroom teacher and raises her concerns, but only gets told that it's normal for teenagers to go missing for a couple of days. As she's about to head home, one of Yoon-hae's classmates decides to reveal what happened to Yoon-hae out of concern. Here Shi-young gets shown a video wherein Yoon-hae gets her clothes forcibly taken off by the school bullies. The video infuriates her, so she goes to confront the school bullies in the karaoke place. She then beats the shit out of them and forces them to reveal where they've taken her sister. Based on the information from the bullies, Shi-young goes to see one of the boys, and proceeds to beat him up. After he's pinned down on the floor, he finally reveals that they don't have Yoon-hae anymore, because just recently when they were trying to pull one of their scams and storms inside the hotel room, they found a powerful gangster named Sang-man there. The gangster refused to let Yoon-hae go, and proceeded to scare the boys away, so the three left Yoon-hae just like that. The only lead they have now is the gangster's phone number from when he booked a hotel room with Yoon-hae. Shi-young repeatedly tries calling the number, but doesn't hear an answer. She also tries reporting this to the police, but they seem to quickly dismiss her by asking if her sister has just run away. Hearing how hard and time-consuming it is to prove that her sister was kidnapped makes her decide to take matters into her own hands. On the other side of town, Sang-man the gangster is on a meeting with a human trafficker, as he is trying to sell Yoon-hae for a wad of cash. During this transaction, Yoon-hae is locked in a room and is crying to be set free, but only gets a slap in the face by the trafficker's assistant. Shi-young is now on an active search for her sister, and goes to the address listed on the business card. She doesn't find Sang-man there, but she does meet a worker who does live there. She beats him up for information, and the man finally confesses and tells her the license plate number of Sang-man's car. After that, Shi-young leaves with the worker's car keys and a stun gun. At the same time, the human trafficker finishes his transaction and goes to see Yoon-hae to force himself on her. On the process, Yoon-hae bites him until he bleeds. Back to Shi-young, after obtaining more information, she goes to the parking lot where the gangster parks his car, and waits until he shows up. Sometime later, Sang Man shows up and enters his car. The woman then tails the vehicle, and calls his cell phone to ask where Yunhei is. When the gangster refuses to answer, the woman waits until they come to a fairly quiet street, and rams into his car. Up next, Shi-young steps out of the car and tases him until he passes out. When the man wakes up, he finds that he is tied around the neck, and Shi-young is forcing him to tell her where Yunhei is. In the end, Sang Man had no choice but to do what she asked and drive. The more that he refuses to answer, the more that she chokes him, causing him to lose control over his vehicle and crashes by the side of the road. Right after, the two proceed to attack each other in an epic brawl inside the car. Shi-young seems to have difficulty fighting the man in the car because they are about the same strength. Even so, Shi-young finally manages to break Sang Man's hand, and get information about Yunhei. Up next, she goes through his phone, and calls the human trafficker while pretending to be the gangster's assistant. According to the human trafficker, he's not satisfied with Yunhei and would like to sell Yunhei to someone else soon. Hearing this gets Shi-young to rush to the human trafficker's establishment, which is a massive massage parlor. After seeing the receptionist wearing Yunhei's hair pin, she immediately attacks her, and demands an audience with the human trafficker. But unfortunately, the human trafficker has already sold Yunhei to someone else, infuriating Shi-young and prompting her to attack. The two proceed to fight, and the woman shows him what she can do. The human trafficker moves to stab her in the gut, but luckily misses. The two end up scuffling on the ground. She chokes him with her thighs until he gives up, and reveals who he sold Yunhei to. Here the assistant reveals that Yunhei had called her home before being taken away. But because no one picks up, Yunhei finally calls someone else in a mini-market to get help. However, they decide to sold her to a client with the codename Lucky Supermarket, and a man in a suit came to pick her up. After getting the phone number of Lucky Supermarket, Shi-young immediately traces the location and rushes there. At the same time, Yunhei is inside the car, getting driven by a man in the suit, who henceforth we shall refer to as Suits. On the way, Suits stops to pick up some food at a gas station, thinking that Yunhei is sleeping. Yunhei then quickly takes the opportunity to escape, and climbs inside a public bus. Unfortunately, as the bus starts going, Suits stops it and demands to be let inside. He announces that Yunhei is his mentally ill sister, and successfully drags her out of the bus. She begs for him to let her go, but despite feeling sorry for her, he still shoves her inside the car and takes her away. Back to Shi-young, she's back on the road when the gangster starts yelling at her from inside the trunk, demanding to be let go. Sick of his cries, she exits the car to ask him some more questions, before crushing the gangster's hand. She then proceeds to thrash the car around, until the trunk door opens and he falls out. Afterwards, she drives away, leaving him alone. Suits and Yunhei have now arrived at a dilapidated building as ordered by Suits' boss, a famous councilman named Park. Here it is revealed that holding Yunhei hostage is not random after all. As it turns out, Councilman Park has unfinished business with Shi-young, and is kidnapping her sister to lure Shi-young to come. In truth, Suits wants to help the sisters, but he is afraid of Councilman Park because the man is deadly and conniving. Interestingly, Lucky Supermarket is the name of a mini-mart near Shi-young's house that her sister used to frequent. Shi-young comes to the mini-market that Yunhei called, and meets the old man who owns the mini-market. In a shocking turn of events, the old man accidentally reveals to her that he used to sexually violate Yunhei during the time Shi-young was in prison. Shi-young becomes furious at this, and with tears in her eyes, she immediately beats up the old man. Even worse, the old man wasn't alone on that. After Shi-young tortures and severs his fingers, he confesses that he and a couple friends of his used to take turns violating Yunhei. This prompts Shi-young to pay each man a visit and beat them all up. First of all, she goes to a photographer's studio and discovers her sister's picture there. She then beats the man without giving it much thought in order to learn more about the next guy. The photographer finally leads us to the opening scene, where Shi-young goes to a workshop, and crushes the auto shop owner's arm with a sledgehammer. While in pain, the workshop owner finally tells her that the one who took Yunhei away right now was Park, the politician who had imprisoned Shi-young. The man also reveals that 3 years ago, He sexually assaulted Yoonhae in Park's car while it was being fixed in his workshop. When Park's car has been repaired, the politician accidentally finds Yoonhae's underwear. The workshop owner was contacted next, and he responded that the pants belonged to a girl with a mental disability. Since then, Park the councilman has been involved in raping Yoonhae. That's the reason why Yoonhae is often late coming home, which makes Shi-young very worried, but Yoonhae never said anything to her sister. One day, Shi-young decides to find out why her sister often comes home late. After school, she sees Yoonhae in a luxury car that takes her to a hotel. There, she caught Park, who had given her sister drugs and began raping her sister. Using a screwdriver, Shi-young immediately attacks the man, and injures his eye. However, her actions to save her sister instead land her in jail, because Park can easily twist the facts as a politician. After learning that Shi-young was out of prison, Park ordered Suits to kill Shi-young and Yoonhae. Back to present time, after getting Suits' phone number, Shi-young immediately calls him up, asking where she could find Councilman Park. With hesitation, Suits, who is fed up with the councilman, reveals the councilman's location, and Shi-young sets off to kill him. Later on, she finds Councilman Park at a private estate, surrounded by his bodyguards, but remains determined. She waits and then takes down a bodyguard with taser, before sneaking her way in. When the woman does locate Park, she holds a gun to his face, and orders him to tell her where Yoonhae is. But unfortunately, the councilman summons his bodyguards, forcing Shi-young to fight all of them while he escapes with his car. It takes the martial arts champion some time and a bit of luck to beat all of the guards. After defeating all the guards, she climbs back inside her car and catches up to the Councilman Park. She rams her car against his amidst all the traffic, and eventually picking up a gun to shoot him when they're adjacent with each other. The woman successfully hits him in the shoulder, but he still manages to escape. In his fury, the councilman calls Suits, and asks him to force Yoonhae to consume as much coke as possible, even if it kills her. Moreover, he also asks Suits to gather all of his henchmen to kill Shi-young. But because Suits feels sorry for the girl, he calls Shi-young and finally decides to reveal Yoonhae and his location. However, as Shi-young arrives, she gets ambushed. And later on, we see Suits tied up and bloody, because the councilman found out that he was trying to help the sisters. Feeling betrayed, the councilman stabs Suits in the neck, effectively killing him. On the other side of the story, we learn that Shi-young survives the ambush, and is cleaning herself up in a public restroom. She then proceeds to get ready for a fight to get her sister back. Meanwhile, the councilman fixes his fake eye, while he waits for Shi-young to come for him. Later, just as they are about to bury Suits' body, Shi-young makes her entrance by ramming into the councilman and his henchmen with her car. They smash her windows, forcing her to climb out, and proceed to try and attack her. Due to the fact that she is a skilled fighter, she is able to take them out one by one. At this point, the councilman has retreated inside, where Yoonhae is. Shi-young keeps up the fight with Park's henchmen, to the point where she is overpowered by them. Park proudly displays Yoonhae by the window for her sister to see, while Shi-young eventually grows exhausted and falls to the ground. One of the henchmen then drags Shi-young up and prepares to slit her throat, but she snatches the knife away and returns to fighting them all. The gang appears to be too confident, which led to their defeat, and Shi-young manages to walk away in victory. Beaten and bruised, she heads inside, and sees her sister barely conscious on the couch, right when the councilman attacks her from behind. He beats her, shoves her against the wall, and manages to stab her in the gut. But with what's left of her fighting spirit, she pins him to the ground and beats him to death. Now that they're safe, she moves towards her sister, and the two share a loving embrace before heading home. On the way, Shi-young keeps on clutching her bloody gut, and tries to fight against the pain, because no matter what, she needs to get her sister home safe.